Hey, I'm Pops, and I want to talk to you about Black Mirror season 6. I know I haven't been a Black Mirror guy. I've watched some episodes, not very many, but someone said you've really got to see this first episode. You're really going to be, and I want to hear your thoughts. So, all right, I did. I watched it. I actually had a great time. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who are like back and forth. It doesn't live up to the old one. Well, if you haven't watched the old ones, and maybe it's me. It's what I. So here's my thing. Um, I enjoy the premise of a show that is trying to be smart and interesting, deal with topics that relate to right now in a cultural way, add some commentary to it, stir up conversation and debate about all that. And I think this show does that. They got me watching episode one. Was so good that it got me watching the next two. So I watched three of the episodes so far. But the first episode centers around this lady named Joan, and let's just be honest, she's awful, right? She has to fire one of her employees. She goes to therapy where she's complaining about her fiance and how much she's still in love with her ex and the great sex life they had. And then the new guy is just sort of like milk toast. And then that night they start watching this show, and I love the fact that it's called Streamberry, by the way. That's hysterical. And it's called Joan is Awful. And it's a show starring Salma Hayek. And Salma Hayek basically is Joan, and the show is reenacting every moment in her life verbatim, to the point where now everybody starts freaking out because the boyfriend is there, the fiance is there, and he's like, wait a minute, this character on the show is texting the ex, can I see your phone? And all that starts to happen. The coworker, they start to turn on her. The boss wants her fired because she basically divulged information through the show, even though she didn't physically do anything. She has no recourse with her lawyer. And anyway, come to find out, there's a quantum computer that's using CGI. And through the user agreements, you're signing over your rights. You're basically saying that you don't have a persona, that your basic identity can be used digitally to be reproduced by Streamberry as they will. And then she thinks Salma Hayek can do something, right? Because Salma Hayek is reenacting everything she does. So she comes up with all these ridiculous, extreme things to do. She's eating all this food and she's taking a laxative, and she goes to this wedding in a church, and it's so gross. But fortunately, most of that's off camera. So I don't think there's anything it's gross, but that infuriates Salma Hayek, who now ultimately does come face to face with Joan at her house, and then she's equally powerless because of signing over her rights. And she didn't, I don't know, I didn't really care for that sequence a little bit, the whole, well, I didn't really understand it. And I'm supposed to, basically it's like I'm supposed to look pretty and have big boobs, and I'm like, oh, that part, I didn't like any of that. So I loved all of the concept of this. I loved all of the concept of AI and AI generated content, the fact that streaming services could be taking advantage of you because you don't read your term of services, all of those kind of elements that we know are kind of true. But this quote big owl, this big algorithm thing hanging out there really hasn't really been addressed, I think, from this angle. I thought this was actually very interesting. And then basically then you have the twist. And the twist is interesting. It's interesting. Let's get to that. Let's look a little bit of the footage together, and then we can kind of get to the twist, if we will. So this is just that run of the mill part of her life. Every day gets up. This is what she does. This is her um, dealing with uh, dealing with the staff and firing the lady. This is as she's out there and she's going to get ready to leave. And this is with the therapist. And this is the ex. And then she's going in for like the kiss, but you're awful. And then this is her with the fiance and being repulsed. And this is the coworker. And they have these like cutaways. This was like wasted screen time, right? Because it's like he's like, I'm not really that gay, am I? Oh, you think he's cute, am I? I'm like, what do we need all this for? This character isn't relevant. And I think it was just done just for checkboxing. And I don't know, it was very cartoonish, and just it didn't really add a whole lot. Um, and why didn't we just cut to the lawyer then? You can see the lawyer seeing herself being played out and that kind of thing. So this is how it all plays out in the trailer. So the trailer kind of sets all that up. This is her getting fired, her not having recourse, and then her going to the ex, and and then this was sleeping with the ex and then not being able to do it because he starts thinking about the show and that Selma Hayek's going to be able to do it. And there's all that kind of stuff. That's how it starts to go. And then, of course, this is the church scene that I mentioned. Selma Hayek being mad, and they sort of team up, and they're going to go to the building, and they're going to sneak in with their scheme to destroy the place, right? Destroy the server. And that's how we get to. And at least on the premise, this is when it really become less interesting. There's this little sequence of them trying to play cat and mouse, like they would know how to do this and like they'd be able to. And then what they find is they overhear this, but they're basically like, there's an algorithm. The computer can generate an algorithm for everyone. And then they find um, Michael Cera's character, right? And then when they find Michael Cera's character, that's when we have our big twist and the big reveal. So, what's the big twist and what's the big reveal, right? If you don't want that spoiler, yeah, there you go. I liked it up until this point. I didn't care for the cat and mouse stuff. Let's talk about the spoiler. So the idea is she gets to this point and she realizes she's not the real Joan. There's actually a Joan. She's the first generation AI version of Joan. And there's like an infinite number that just keeps going. So for instance, there's somewhere out there, there's a real Joan. Then there's this Annie Murphy Joan. Then that Joan is played by Selma Hayek, and Selma Hayek's version is played by Kate Blanchett, and so on and so forth. That conceptually was fine. The fact that the twist is that she's not the first Joan. It's like, well, destroying the machine doesn't really matter too much because the first Joan did she do it or did she not do it or whatever. And then we get the first Joan, and it's just very generic, and we have this little twist ending with the actress, and it's like I didn't care. So the ending falls pretty flat for me, and I didn't really know how to take that piece of it, really, the layers of the AI thing and why the story was being told from level 1. Oh, we're so clever because we fooled you in thinking that you're on level 1, but you really were on level 2 or 5, or it doesn't really matter, right? Here's the thing. The concept of the show and the concept of that AI creation, and you sign over your rights and deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. That I think is where Black Mirror has its value and why it's interesting and why people sort of, go to it regularly and enjoy it. And the fandom is built so much. This is coming from someone who's a complete noob on Black Mirror. So I don't get all these intricate references and Easter eggs and things like that because I know that was in there. Totally get it. No, I know that was in there. I see some of the thumbnails that have popped up a little bit about Black Mirror and whatever. I don't have any of that knowledge, so I'm not gonna waste your time trying to pretend. But I can tell you I had an entertaining time. I would watch this episode again, and it was so good that it got me enough that I would watch the X2, which I did, and I will do videos on those as well. So you guys tell me what you guys think. Maybe you have recommendations of ones I should watch. I've watched a few. I don't even know that I could tell you the names of those episodes. I know conceptually what a couple of them are. Like the one that was kind of like the Star Trek sci-fi one I watched. The one with Bryce Dallas Howard, Bryce Dallas Howard, the social credit one was my favorite. That's the one that was really considered one of the best ones of all time. I don't know if that's true or not. Watch that one. A lot of the ones I've tried to start, a couple of them had like a lot of graphic stuff that I'm not into, so I just turned those off and didn't watch them. But anyway, Black Mirror. There we go. Let's talk about them.